Hello, my dear friends. Today, I have decided to start this story, the next part of the story which we were reading yesterday, the story of a Hiraman. Hiraman, a green parrot from Folktales of Bengal, and which from this book, and this book was written by Reverend Lal Bihari Day, and it was first published in the year 1883, and this very copy was published in the year 1912. So till now what we came to know that Hiraman, a green parrot, a very wise parrot, and which was capable to speak like normal human being, and was a wise one. So it somehow get a position in the king's courtyard, and as it was a very wise one, so somehow king started to spend more and more time with it rather than his six queens. And what happened next, that due to the jealousy, those six queens, they have somehow jotted down a plan and to kill the Hiraman. But as it was a very wise one, so it has somehow managed to escape from that plot. And what happened next? Let's start with that. The king wept day and night for the bird as he loved it much. His ministers became afraid lest his reason should give way, for he used every hour of the day to weep, saying, O my Hiraman, where art thou gone? Proclamation was made by beat of drum throughout the kingdom to the effect that if any person could produce before the king his pet Hiraman, he would be rewarded with 10,000 rupees. The woodcutter rejoiced at the idea of becoming independent for life, produced the precious bird, and obtained the reward. The king, on hearing from the parrot that the queens had attempted to kill it, became mad with rage. He ordered them to be driven away from the palace and put in a desert place without food. The king's order was obeyed, and it was rumored after a few days that the poor queens were all devoured by wild beasts. After some time, the king said to the parrot Hiraman, You said to the queens that the beauty of none of them could be compared to the beauty of even the little toe of the lady who lives on the other side of the 7 oceans and 13 rivers. Do you know of any means by which I can get at that lady? Hiraman, of course I do. I can take your majesty to the door of the palace in which that lady of peerless beauty lives, and if your majesty will abide by my counsel, I will undertake to put that lady into your arms. King, I will do whatever you tell me. What do you wish me to do? Hiraman, what is required is a Pakshiraj. Pakshiraj is a flying horse, is a kind of unicorn, but without the unicorn horn. So, Hiraman said, What is required is a Pakshiraj. If you can produce a horse of that species, you can ride upon it, and in no time we shall cross the 7 oceans and 13 rivers and stand at the door of the lady's palace. King, I have, as you know, a large stud of horses. We can now go and see if there are any Pakshirajas amongst them. The king and the Hiraman went to the royal stables and examined all the horses. The Hiraman passed by all the fine looking horses and those of high mettle, and alighted upon a wretched looking lean pony and said, Here is the horse I want. It is a horse of the genuine Pakshiraj breed, but it must be fed full 6 months with the finest grain before it can answer our purpose. The king accordingly put that pony in a stable by itself, and himself saw every day that it was fed with the finest grain that could be got in the kingdom. The pony rapidly improved in appearance, and at the end of 6 months, the Hiraman pronounced it fit for service. The parrot then told the king to order the royal silversmith to make some kais of silver. A large quantity of silver kais, I suppose it is koi. Okay, even I have to check. Yeah, koi. In the Bengali pronunciation of this thing is koi, which is made out of the paddy, the roasted paddy. So, a large quantity of silver koi was made in a short time. When about to start on their aerial journey, the Hiraman said to the king, I have one request to make. Please whip the horse only once at starting. If you whip them, if you whip him more than once, we shall not be able to reach the palace but stick midway. And when we return homewards after capturing the lady, you are also to whip the horse once only. If you whip him more than once, we shall come only half the way and remain there. The king then got upon the Pakshiraj with the Hiraman and the silver coins and gently whipped the animal once. The horse shot through the air with the speed of lightning, passed over many countries, kingdoms, and empires, crossed the oceans and 13 rivers, and alighted in the evening at the gate of a beautiful palace. Now, near the palace gate there stood a lofty tree. The Hiraman told the king to put the horse in the stable hard by, and then to climb into the tree and remain there concealed. The Hiraman took the silver coins and with its beak began dropping koi after koi from the foot of the tree all through the corridors and passages up to the door of the bedchamber of the lady of peerless beauty. After doing this, the Hiraman perched upon the tree where the king was concealed. Some hours after midnight, the maid servant of the lady who slept in the same room with her, wishing to come out, opened the door and noticed the silver coins laying there. She took up a few of them and, not knowing what they were, showed them to her lady. The lady, admiring the little silver bullets and wondering how they could have got there, came out of her room and began picking them up. She saw a regular stream of them apparently issuing from near the door of her room and proceeding she knew not how far. She went on picking up in a basket the bright shining coins all through the corridors and passages till she came to the foot of the tree. No sooner did the lady of peerless beauty come to the foot of the tree than the king, agreeably to instruction previously given to him by Hiraman, alighted from the tree and caught hold of the lady. In a moment she was put upon the horse along with himself. At that moment the Hiraman sat upon the shoulder of the king. The king gently whipped the horse once, and they all were whirled through the air with the speed of lightning. The king, wishing to reach home soon with the precious prize, and forgetful of the instructions of the Hiraman, whipped the horse again, on which the horse at once alighted on the outskirts of what seemed a dense forest. What have you done, O king? Shouted out the Hiraman. Did I not tell you not to whip the horse more than once? You have whipped him twice, and we are done for. We may meet with our death here. But the thing was done, and it could not be helped. The Pakshiraj became powerless, and the party could not proceed homewards. They dismounted, but they could not see anywhere the habitation of men. But they could not see anywhere the habitations of men. They ate some fruits and roots and slept that night there upon the ground. Next morning it so chanced that the king of that country came to that forest to hunt. As he was pursuing a stag whom he had pierced with an arrow, he came across the king and the lady of peerless beauty. Struck with the matchless beauty of the lady, he wished to seize her. He whistled, and in a moment his attendants flocked around him. The lady was made a captive, and her lover, who had brought her from her house, was on the other side of the seven oceans and 13 rivers, was not put to death, but his eyes were put out, and he was left alone in the forest alone, and yet not alone, for the good Hiraman was with him. The lady of peerless beauty was taken into the king's palace as well as the pony of her lover. The lady said to the king that he must not come near her for 6 months, in consequence of her vow which she had taken and which would be completed in that period of time. She mentioned 6 months as that period would be necessary re- for recruiting the constitution of the Pakshiraj. As the lady professed to engage every day in religious ceremonies, in consequence of her vow, a separate house was assigned to her where she took the Pakshiraj and fed him with the choicest grain. But everything would be fruitless if the lady did not meet the Hiraman. But how is she to get a sight of that bird? She adopted the following expedient. She ordered her servants to scatter on the roof of her house heaps of paddy, grain, and all sorts of pulse for the refreshment of birds. The consequence was that thousands of feathery rays came to the roof to partake of the abundant feast. The lady was every day on the lookout for her Hiraman. The Hiraman, meanwhile, was in great distress in the forest. He had to take care not only of himself but of the now blinded king. He plucked some ripe fruits in the forest and gave them to the king to eat, and he ate of them himself. This was the manner of Hiraman's life. The other birds of the forest spoke thus to the parrot: "O Hiraman, you have a miserable life of it in this forest. Why don't you come with us to an abundant feast provided for us by a pious lady who scatters many mounds of pulse on the roof of her house for the benefit of our race? We go there early in the morning and return in the evening, eating our fill along with thousands of other birds." The Hiraman resolved to accompany them next morning, shrewdly suspecting more in the lady's charity to birds than the other birds thought there was in it. The Hiraman saw the lady and had a long chat with her about the health of the blinded king, the means of curing his blindness, and about her escape. The plan adopted was as follows. The pony would be ready for aerial flight in a short time, for a great part of the 6 months had already elapsed, and the king's blindness could be cured if the Hiraman could procure from the chicks of the Bihangama and Bihangami, Bangoma and Bangomi in Bengali pronunciation, or in the Bengali name, Bengali colloquial name. Bihangama and Bihangami birds, who had their nest on the tree at the gate of the lady's palace beyond the seven oceans and 13 rivers, a quantity of their ordure, fresh and hot, and apply it to the eyeballs of the blinded king. The following morning, the Hiraman started on his errand of mercy, remained at night on the tree at the gate of the palace beyond the seven oceans and 13 rivers, and early the next morning waited below the nest of the birds with a leaf on its beak, into which dropped the ordure of the chicks. That moment, the Hiraman flew across the oceans and rivers, came to the forest, and applied the precious balm to the sightless sockets of the king. The king opened his eyes and saw. In a few days, the Pakshiraj was in proper trim. The lady escaped to the forest and took the king up, and the lady, king, and Hiraman all reached the king's capital safe and sound. The king and the lady were united together in wedlock. They lived many years together happily and begat sons and daughters, and the beautiful Hiraman was always with them, reciting the names of the 1330 millions of gods. So, here my story endeth. The Natia throne withered. So, in Bengali, I always end a story with the actual Bengali poem. So, let's end the story. আমার কথাটি ফুরলো, নোটে গাছটি মুড়লো, কেন রে নোটে মুড়লি, গরু কেন ঘাস খায়, কেন রে গরু ঘাস খাস, রাখাল কেন ঘাস দেয় না, কেন রে রাখাল খড় দিস না, ঘাস দিস না, বউ কেন ভাত দেয় না, কেন রে বউ ভাত ভাত দিস না, খোকা কেন কাঁদে, কেন রে খোকা কাঁদিস, পিঁপড়ে কেন কামড়ায়, কেন রে পিঁপড়ে কামড়াস, kut kut kut. So this is the story, this is the end of the story, and from this story, as per my little understanding, I can say that jealousy doesn't pay. So due to the jealousy, those 6 queens, they have lost their lives. And if you are poised in your decision, if you are not in hurry, then maybe you can deviate some unwanted problems in your life. So this is it. Be happy, be jolly, and we will start another story from next Sunday. Till then, be happy, be safe. Ta-da.